when you're going back to your Monday.com and your CRM, you're building out these mailing campaigns. Is there any automation to it? Because I feel like, specifically where I'm from, there's hundreds of cases that come up on a month, and so if I'm mailing out hundreds of people a month, how to keep and without manually going into that CRM and saying I mailed this date, because that stuff's so tedious to me to go in and like manually change all that. So I don't know if there's any type of automation to any of this.
hmm there's going to be a handful of people that have their mailers on automation on this call. If you have your mailer on automation on this call, I want you to raise your hand, specifically if you're not using all the leads. Okay, if you're using all the leads, I'm going to speak about them really quickly first. Before I talk about the automation, I want to differentiate warm mail marketing versus cold mail marketing. If it's warm, I'm holding it. I'm keeping up with who gets what. And it's not going to be a lot of pieces any given day. So if we've had a conversation, they're getting some high value stuff from me. They're not just getting a postcard and a letter stuffed in a number 10 envelope. They're going to get packets with CMAs and checklists and brochures and different things, and things like that'll go out a multitude of times. But it's not going to be a whole list of 200 people either. If it's
Okay.
cold and you're blanketing every single person on your lead list, all the leads has a pretty good automation system. You just go in and say whether they're in or they're out of that particular campaign, so you could cut them down. I don't know where you're. Actually, I do know. I think you said that you're um, pulling yourself, I think. So all the leads is pretty good if you're getting leads from them. I think that they'll do your mail if you're not getting leads from them. I think just check all the
I
leads.
haven't, yeah, I haven't signed up with anybody yet. And so what you're saying, the leads is like, contracting one of these data brokers for probate services so we can find out some data. I don't know
Mhm.
how accurate a lot of these phone numbers they'll give us are, but I know you maybe you have to go through trial and error to find the best data.
Sure. I think that they're just subjective opinion. I feel like their data is generally better than the other data brokers. And they've got some systems specifically with mail in place as well, websites, things like that. Um, there's several of them. I find on theirs that it's around 90% of your leads are going to have a good number that they give you, but they're going to give you three or four numbers with each lead. And that means that 75% of the numbers that they give you won't be good, but one of them will. One of them will.
Okay.
And
And
they'll
so
also
I'm
give you
guessing,
additional errors. Hmm.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
guessing you guys, again, I'm new to all this, but I have used dialers in the past. So, like maybe registering with a Mojo dialer or Red X and dumping the leads in there and making call blocks, during the week.
Yeah. Anybody that's doing that with Mojo or Vulcan 7 or any kind of dialer where you're doing that, please raise your hand. Specifically, if you're getting leads from a data broker that give you multiple numbers and multiple contacts. Personally, I find the mapping by getting all the leads, I find the mapping to be extremely complex because let's take Mojo, for example. Mojo will typically let you put one lead, one contact, one or two phone numbers. But when that phone number dials, it's going to show you the lead name. It won't necessarily show you the additional contact name unless you've really gone through a bunch of extra steps to map really well. But with all the leads, and most of the data providers, they'll usually give you the personal representative with two or three phone numbers. They'll give you two or three additional heirs with one or two phone numbers for each heir. And so when you're doing an auto dial through like a Mojo or a Vulcan, that number pops up and you don't know which heir you're calling at all. So mapping with Mojo when you've got lead lists like that, a little bit complex. Personally, what I like to do is go a little bit slower through the first round. First round, go a little bit slower. I pull up the property that the decedent lived in. I double check and make sure that it still seems like it's in the family. We're talking 10 or 15 seconds. I don't
Mhm.
dig deep. I just want to see if decedent property seems to be owned by the family. If it is, I'm going to manually dial it. Once I've manually dialed it and kind of confirmed that I've got a working number, then I'll probably move it into my power dialer, but it's going to be a little bit more manual in nature during that first round. Um, and that's kind of the way that I live. There's a lot of people here that do power dialers and they love it. Okay. So if you guys do, tell us how you do it. I've done power dialers. I just find with like an ATL type of lead list, it's a little bit more efficient for me to go slow the first time and then power dial after I've figured out who's who.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So back to mail. If you are doing warm mail, I would hold on to it yourself. You're not sending very many pieces out. Warm mail is vitally important. Once you've had a dialogue with someone, it's really important. If they have a house, you got to remember 50% of the time it's going to be sold. Maybe not for a year, maybe next month though, but it's going to be sold
Yeah.
half of the time. So those conversations you've had specifically, if you know that there's a house involved, I'm going to kind of farm that person for a while. Instead of doing a traditional farm where maybe 5% of a zip code or a neighborhood lists and sells a house, I know that now I'm farming to a list of where 50% is going to be moving. So,
Okay.
and then cold mail. Cold mail is cold mail. It depends on your market. Some markets respond to cold mailers extremely well, really well. Other markets don't respond to cold mailers very well.
Okay.